So Abner, I want to ask you a question. It's a burning question I've had over the last couple of days. Is the Android show one of Google's new keynotes, or is it slightly less than that?
Calling it a keynote would be generous, I think. Yeah, it was more a presentation, I guess, rather than a keynote. A keynote in the traditional sense of live demos and people speaking on a stage. This was a recorded bit. It felt more like Apple's recent style of keynotes that are no longer live, that are pre-recorded. It had those vibes, which is par for the course for the Android show. It's always the developer-focused Android shows for the past few years or so. It's par for the course in that regard. But I don't know. I think I was expecting something more keynote-y in the traditional I/O sense. And what we got was just, around 20 minutes. Actual announcement-wise, maybe, 20 minutes with a lot of transitions in between. It was very, very much a show, as promised, as billed in the name. But I think my expectations were for something more keynote-y, and it very much wasn't that.
Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me a little bit of the launch night in. Was that Pixel 5 era?
Yeah.
It kind of felt a lot like that. Did they do an online for Pixel 6? I can't even remember, but 2021. But it feels like such a long time ago. Time is just evaporating. But it felt a bit launch night-y in that it was like, pre-recorded. Just I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like sometimes the keynotes, I know some people love them. I'm kind of indifferent. I'm more like, just give me the product specifications, give me the price, I'm happy. Like the rest is, we will take it apart in post, if that makes sense.
Fair.
I mean, I guess when we start to think about launch events and stuff, made by Google's a little bit more in-depth in that they go into the true ins and outs. But obviously the standout is this new Android 16 redesign that we just keep banging on about, but I guess that's our MO. What do you think so far of what we've seen that's like official, if that makes sense, and is coming soon?
Yeah, I guess what we got was more of the story behind why they're doing it, and I'm very glad. I think we were asking about the transparency, the blur last time, and the official reason is the blur in the recent multitasking and in the notifications shade was to provide some separation to convey where you are in the operating system at all times. Still doesn't really work with dynamic color, but neither here nor there. So they focused on the animations. The animations are a big focus. They want to emphasize how there are little delightful touches here and there, which is the main reason for material to be expressive. And I think that sold it. Overall, it just looks very cohesive together. It's Google wants to add expressiveness. Expressiveness is an interesting word for it. We've been living with it for the past 2 weeks now, but it's...
Do you think it's the right word? I'm kind of... I get what they're trying to say. I mean, I'm an animation guy, you know that as well, but like I think all of these little extra touches to me is... And I don't think I wouldn't call it expressive. I'd call it... call it what it is, attention to detail. I think if you can have an animation that works from effectively... the dream is to have the animation work from interaction to the end of the interaction. I think this kind of creates this. And I know obviously a cliche thing specifically for Pixel is in air quotes buttery smooth, which I don't really like that terminology, but that's probably what everyone seems to almost like lean into in terms of Pixel interface. This feels like that next step. Like we've had smooth Pixel interfaces for a while. It's that little extra attention to detail that's going to make the biggest difference. And these are the kind of touches that Google kind of has. Maybe they've seen iOS doing it for a long time, and even One UI and Oxygen OS are another good examples. Like we've seen those OEMs, OnePlus, Oppo, and Samsung kind of like they get given the tools to make their own Android versions, and even they're putting their own extra little touches to it. So I'm glad that Google's going to go, has kind of read the room a little bit, I guess. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but having all these little extra touches is really, really nice. Like, what do you think in terms of like, is this too little too late in some respects? I know we're going to have this really strange transition period now when we have Android 16 with barely anything in it, and then whatever QPR1 is going to be a huge major thing. Like, do you think that? I personally think it's aligning for Pixel 10, obviously, which is obvious. Like, I'm not pulling up trees.
All debut on the Pixel 10 first device, and maybe a week or two later, all the other devices will get it with QPR1. I think the word Google used was springy. They are natural springy animations. To read the quote, to bring a moment of delight to everyday routines. It's, again, I think I need to feel this because you need to actually use it, because you can appreciate it much more when you're actually using it, of course. But
yeah, that's a good point, actually.
From what we have right now, it's the high, it's everywhere. It appears to be consistent. It's system wide, so that's good. That's a very good start to all of this. And the system itself, the quick settings, the notification shade, just a system UI, it appears cohesive. It appears they touched every single surface. Google didn't really talk about the status bar icons, which is something you live with every single day. So, but yeah, it's the core of it is there, and I think that'll be the big update come a few months. So the other thing they had was live updates. We finally got to see live updates in full. It's on the always on display, which is nice. It's on top of your notification shade. When you're just using your phone, it's a pill next to your time, and when you tap it, you get the full notification. So I think I've been really waiting to see what the full experience is like before judging it. But so far, it looks pretty good. It's probably not like the dynamic island level of interactivity or like. Is like the dynamic island is very prominent. It's hardware, obviously, so software can't compete with that. But it looks. I think it'll be fun when apps adopt it.
I think live updates is a great example. I think when we look at this definitely puts into perspective. Like, obviously, we saw stuff. I think we mentioned it last week that having leaked things ahead of time can almost give you sometimes a false sense of what you should expect, if that makes sense. Like, there's a lot of these things now that look cleaner than obviously a pre-release build potentially, or like people enabling things that are in progress. Like, the fact of the matter is that we have something that looks way better than I anticipated. Like, I was kind of frustrated. I didn't want Google to go down this route with the quick settings panel, but the quick settings panel makes a lot more sense when you see it in situ. It looks cleaner. I mean, obviously, that's a perfect demo, isn't it? Obviously, when we get to see these potentially in a QPR1 beta in future, then it may not be quite as polished, but I kind of hope it is, because they'll have more time in the oven, and they've almost set expectations by revealing some of their changes. Like you said with the live updates, I'm glad that they've done this with the AOD, because I'd have been annoyed if they didn't. Like, I know that obviously we only have that live in the current incarnation of Android 16. I'm pretty sure, is it only the Easter egg that it works with right now?
Yeah, Maps
is fine,
but they pulled it.
Yeah, it's kind of fine, but this new interactivity with it, and the integration with the Uber Eats app, I think it is in a demo. You find that we'll leave a link in the show notes for that as well, so you can check that out. But yeah, it does look more. It does look a lot more. Is it in keeping with what Google is trying to do with the rest of the system? It just looks like a regular Google widget to me, but with ability to have it in on your lock screen. I want to ask you about some other little changes though. We saw some other little changes, like you alluded to it, the status bar. What do you I am going to be sad if we're not going to be able to revert to the traditional Pixel battery icon. I really kind of like that.
They
it's like a
didn't really
throwback.
talk about customization. We don't know whether the lock screen clocks can be customized as leaked in some builds, or whether that's like a Pixel 10 thing. They didn't really talk about customizing it, like the app icons either. They really didn't go into that. Yeah, I still have to. I need to look at that battery icon every single day to see how I feel about it, because I didn't. It's very iOS-y, especially the percentage being inside the battery, and I do not like the One UI 7 one, where it's just a perfect pill instead of anything that has definition. So yeah, I need to live with that. I really need to live with that.
I also noticed something while I'm looking at it right now. It looks like we're probably going to get a new system font. Like, obviously, judging by the status bar and the quick settings, it does look like we're going to get a more rounded. There's not going to be it's a little bit, and I don't want to use the term Comic Sans, but there's a little bit of like a Comic Sans element to it, a little bit of softness to the text that we usually had quite sharp, and it's not serif, is it? But just sans serif fonts that we've had in Android for a while, and Roboto being the classic. Like, is that trying to make? I don't know. It's literally just coming to me right now. Do you think that this is kind of like Google trying to be a bit more approachable to everyone, like friendly? I don't think that's expressive. I just think it's like, I guess it's softening up maybe the harder edge of what people assume Android is. I guess maybe for US people, specifically.
The word, again, it comes back to them choosing the word expressive. They want to make Material U more expressive. I obviously think that Material U was so much better branding than Material Tree Expressive, or I guess people in the know will shorthand it to M3E. But again, we really need to use this. We really need to see what the haptics feel like that go with the animations, whether one will get annoyed with the springiness or whatever once you actually rivet it. But overall, it looks consistent, and that's the most you can hope for at this point before you actually get a chance to use it.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it, and we're gonna live in hope that we get to see something in the next few weeks, because obviously, hey, if they're going to have a QPR1 beta, it's got to start at some point soon. So hopefully in with that first beta, we're going to get to see some really cool stuff. But one thing I wanted, before we kind of move on to some other cool software stuff, I genuinely am surprised at how much Google lent into lilac, pink, and purple this time around for this color system. It seems to be all over the marketing. It was very much like, and it was like very, very purple. I wonder what the reasoning for that is. I wonder if that's a hint at something going to happen with Pixel 10. But hey, I'm not reading between any lines. I'm just wondering. Like, I love the color purple, so yeah, I want to see some more of that. These colors are a little bit out there, a little bit different, rather than the staid, plain things that we see usually across most of the tech space. But yeah, let's get into Wear OS 6, which is effectively, I mean, it's an extension of this, isn't it? It's Material 3, but for a wearable. I don't think there's quite as many changes. I don't know what you think so far. Like, I'm currently using a OnePlus Watch, so I'm not using a Pixel Watch at the minute. So my opinion's probably a bit invalid there.
It was a complete surprise in that, well, I guess you could assume that Wear OS 6 is coming. Google has been pretty yeary about it based on Android 16. But this was a surprise through and through. Nothing leaked. And you can compare and contrast like what happened with the phones and what happened with the watches. Google got to announce Wear OS 6 on its own terms. They had the full element surprise. And I'm not sure if this is because we've seen the phones. We've been looking at the leaks. They've been for months and months. But the Wear OS 6 was a breath of fresh air almost. It's interesting to see what happens when Google can present a cohesive vision on its own without any outside whatever. But yeah, bringing Material Tree Expressive to the watch, and it's really they're embracing the round display. They have buttons that go up to the edges. They have curved buttons. They're really maximizing the screen real estate. And I think it's to its benefit. It's really benefiting from that. It just looks less empty. I think the tiles are a perfect example of that. Today, tiles are pretty barren. They at most show one key stat, or they're very minimalist as is. But what they have a grid isn't the right word, but they have a system to maximize the buttons you can press, and I think it looks really nice. It looks really rich. It takes it up closer to watchOS and the Apple Watch in terms of how it kind of feels like you have a miniature phone experience on your wrist with the Apple Watch. So it's maybe Google will balance it a bit better with Wear OS 6 and M3E, but I don't know. I'm really liking how Wear OS is looking less barren, less bare bones, and it has more of the Material You personality that we've been living with on phones.
I think it's very interesting that Google has made some changes to the way that Wear OS is going to feel in terms of like interactivity. Like, for instance, my biggest takeaway was, and they even said this in their own blog posts, is that they were saying that typing on a smartwatch screen, can be really irritating and finicky. Like I'm really surprised. And then when you go look at the pin entry screen, that is almost a direct rebuttal to be like, we're going to make this easier because we're going to give you huge keypads to dial in. I mean, it looks like the Google Calculator app, which I think is a good thing because it's a callback to one of their first-party applications. I think anytime where they tie things together, and I know a lot of people will criticize a lot of tech companies out there for not having cohesive visions. I think tying everything together, would that be that software, hardware, and anything else in between, by doing that, there is people who want to be in the air quotes ecosystem because they know that that their watch works exactly like the phone. And I know you've alluded to it. It's like a small smartphone experience. And I think that makes the most sense because as good as the Pixel Watch is, it does feel a little bit, in terms of visuals anyway, without that true Material You and now Material 3 Expressive, it now is going to feel a lot more closer to a Pixel Watch than Pixel phone than it was at launch and in the time since. Like, what do you think in terms of like the way that they've squeezing in certain elements into this rounded display? I don't know if in the back of my mind I'm thinking this could open the door for larger displays on wearables, because you're maximizing the very, very the areas where there's quite a substantial amount of bezel. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, so personally, I've actually switched to the 45mm Pixel Watch full time as of like a month or two ago, and I am very much loving the bigger screen. And this was, people have wanted it for ages, but I think in the case of the Pixel Watch, the bigger screen for the sake of these animations is how you going forward. It's Wear OS has always had this bare bones to it, even in Wear OS 3. So like the animations when you're scrolling the notification, it feels like the processor, the chips have finally caught up to having phone level experiences on your wrist, and maybe the battery is better, with Google saying Wear OS 6 is 10% more, you get 10% more battery. So overall, I think this is even more so on the watch, and on the phone. I think just because there's less UI, so to speak, what you have looks so much more cohesive. Like it's cohesive internally within the watch, within the designs that they're aiming for, but also it shares so much of the phone. Like you said, the pin pad, the quick settings, it's all the animations there, the buttons morphing from pills to rounded rectangles when you tap on it, all that gets translated over from the phone. And I think absolutely for the better. I'm really looking, this is what I'm most excited to use, more so than phones, I have to admit.
I'm only disappointed they didn't show us any new watch faces. I kind of would think they've shown us the stock watch face for the Pixel Watch 3, which I'm a little bit disappointed by it. It's a lovely watch face, don't get me wrong. And again, it's in that purple colour. I don't know why purple and lilac seems to be the colour scheme they're going for this year. But I kind of hope that they introduce some more watch faces that take even better advantage of it and maybe have a little bit more bounce and personality that is part of this, in air quotes, expressive thing. The only other thing I would be interested in with regard to what they do with Wear OS 6 is, and I think this is just kind of more of an idea, I would love to see a bit more of crossover between tiles and widgets on Pixel phones and the watch. I feel like it would be good to have something that is effectively one-to-one. Like, I know that you could argue that it's a sales tactic for people to get watches, but I would love to see some of these like that. I know if you go look at the press images, there's a couple of widgets for the contacts. There's one for Google Maps, I think it is with the search and go option, which is like a smaller version of what you can get on your phone. I would love to see those almost like snapshot widgets put on the Pixel. I think it would be kind of cool to have, because you could have like 4 or 5 of them on your home screen, and don't get me wrong, it would take up a fair amount of space, but yeah, just there is a opportunity there that I think nobody else seems to be taking advantage of, and I think that would be kind of cool. Am I excited? Well, like I say, as someone who uses the OnePlus Watch 3, I am excited, and it may make me switch back over, but obviously that 10% battery gain, will that make a difference to people day to day? Because I guess if you've had a Pixel Watch 3, you've had it nearly a year now, and obviously there's going to be battery degradation. Are you going to have more than 10% battery degradation wearing a watch every day? I don't know. But yeah, it's always great to see these claims, whether they're backed up by real world data is another thing. But I think, I agree with you. It was the shock one. It was the one we kind of didn't expect and we're really excited by.
Yeah, so those are absolutely the main points of the Android show. It's coming away, Material Tree Expressive is coming later this year, first on Pixel. So that's something to look forward to. Again, absolutely referring to the Pixel 10. So I think the other big announcement from the Android show was Find My Device becoming Find Hub. So far, this is just a name change to reflect how back in March they added the people sharing tab and capability, and how the Find My Device name doesn't really work with that. Just to spend a few minutes on the name, Find Hub. It's an interesting one. It immediately reminds me of Grubhub.
I was about to ask you about that. I know. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a strange one, but at the same time, I get it. It makes sense. It does make sense. It's one of those sometimes when Google makes a decision, we're like, you're scratching your head and wondering why they've done this. I do think Find My Device could have worked in its own thing. And then maybe they could have done what Apple has done with, is it Find My Friends? Is that still a thing? I don't know. But basically have a separate application. But I understand that having it all in one place, 2 tabs, is a cleaner way of doing things. And then you don't have to split things away and spend extra development time. And it is technically using your phone anyway. So it makes sense to be within the one hub, essentially. I kind of like this decision. I do think it makes sense. And my biggest gripe with Find My Device and Find Hub in general is that it's not as robust as it still could be, So yeah, I suppose the good thing is that this update kind of coincides with the Moto tag getting that ultra wideband tracking, which gives you visual hints, and so precise
location, distance, that kind of stuff.
That's kind of interesting. I do think that is. I mean, it's great timing for the Moto tag. It makes it more of a viable product and probably the outright tag you should go out and buy. But there's some other interesting things in here, right? We're going to get we're going to get suitcase brands and luggage brands that have integrated trackers in them. I think that's a really cool move. I don't know if you'd pick one up or just stick to throwing one in your backpack anyway.
Yeah, I just throw some in, but the ecosystem is growing. That's that part of the news. The other software announcements is that in the future, the other partner announcement is it's working with carriers with airline carriers. They're working with them to be able to, if you lose your luggage, which is something the app AirTag did, already offers. So yeah, that's happening. The other big announcement is satellite connectivity. that you're able to use if you're out of cellular range and you're on a supported device, carrier, etc. You can use it for location sharing. You can use satellite connectivity to share your location, to maybe see other people's location. So that's a nice development. But yeah, FineHub, I guess that's coming later this year. But the biggest announcement now is that UWB support is rolling out in May, and that you should soon see an update that just makes it FineHub.
Yeah, so if you're wondering, if you're trying to find my device on your home screen, search for Hub or find Hub, and it should change. The icons staying the same.
Oh, yep.
The experience is practically the same. I mean, technically not probably as good as the AirTag in terms of like searching for stuff, but that's by the by. I think, there are some things that I really like about it. I like the fact that you can do location sharing as well. That's great. And like you say, the satellite connectivity could be a really good safety tool.
Absolutely.
With supported devices. So yeah, Pixel 8 and above on Pixel series. I think does that include the regular Pixel 8? I can't remember.
The satellite connectivity? No.
Yeah, satellite connectivity.
No,
is it just?
It's still Pixel 9 only.
Oh no, so yeah, I'm thinking off device off searching. Yeah, but yeah, the satellite connectivity Pixel 9 and above, and a couple of I think there's a Samsung phone in there as well. But yeah, it's all great. It's all great to see anything getting evolutions, even if it does mean just removing device and putting Hub at the end. And this is one of those cases. So in terms of, let's look Outlook, because we have a huge event coming up next week. We have a huge event that has now almost been decoupled from Android. So we do expect Google to do some things at I/O with related to Android, but maybe not quite as headline or kind of attention grabbing. What do we think we're going to see, and what is confirmed to be seen? Because I'm kind of need to know this as well, because I'm going to be with you there in Mountain View next week.
So to wrap up the Android show, the other big component was Gemini, but not the biggest, because it's just Gemini coming to iOS, Gemini coming to Android Auto and Automotive, Gemini coming to TV. I guess we can talk about it for a minute. Google is ending the Google Assistant charade. That there was earlier this year at CES, it seemed like it was going to remain the Google Assistant, but that they were going to keep that name for home devices, for smart speakers, for TVs, but no, that's over. They're calling it Gemini, mercifully, and that's for the better, because we'll see what happens with speakers and smart Nest displays and whatever, but on TVs, it's going to be Gemini. That's a good thing. But yeah, Gemini on Android XR when that happens. But yeah, so in many ways, Google is also using the Android show to clear out the more minor Gemini announcements. All Gemini and all these on Wear, on TVs, on cars, pretty straightforward. You pretty much get the full experience as you do on phones. You get access to apps, extensions, your data, etc. So they were clearing that way. There was nothing about Gemini on phones in terms of new features during the Android show. And I'd expect that to be the full focus of the I/O keynote, taking new practical applications, new features of Gemini for your phone, for your computer, or whatever. That's going to be the full crux of I/O, I'm sure. And we'll see how futuristic things get. But yeah, that's the thing to look forward to. It's like last year, it's a Gemini heavy, it's an AI heavy show, and you have to make your peace of that or be excited by that or whatever. But it's going to be Gemini on phones, full tilt.
I suppose that was one of the good things of getting Android out ahead of I/O. It doesn't get buried in Gemini news, which is something that I think a lot of people will be critical of if you're like us, I think the pair of us are kind of more leaning to the Android side of things. I'm definitely coming around to some of the Gemini applications, but yeah, I think Android going out ahead of time, Android show going out ahead of time is a good thing. I wonder if this is going to be something they do permanently and do it like this all of the time and save all those big announcements and keep I/O specifically for AI moving forward. But I guess there's going to be some fatigue from people doing it like that. I wonder how it affects viewership of I/O as well. But yeah, Gemini on more form factors is always good to see. it shows that there's that. I mean, obviously, if Google integrates it properly, which I don't doubt they will, because the rollout's been pretty solid so far. I'm excited to see it on AR and XR. AR and XR. I always forget. I'm bad at the namings of these. So if we get XR, extended reality, I want to see how it works in the real world, in a real world setting for that, because I can imagine that is the world facing camera that you've alluded to multiple times on this pod before. That I think where we get that true application of Gemini. Gemini needs to be a world facing camera and having contextual cues. We've seen it with the Astra powered Gemini Live on phones. So to be able to see that on this form factor, where I think it lives effectively hand in hand with you day to day, I think is I'm excited to potentially get to test that next week. And whether or not we get some more information about what Samsung's doing with their Muhan headset as well is always going to be good. But yeah, Android heavy I/O. No, I think those days are long.
Yeah, I think the extent of any additional Android news will be absolutely about Android XR, for better or worse.
And how do you think that's going to pan out? Because obviously there's going to be a public demo for all of attendees. You're going to get a few minutes with the headsets or the glasses sets, whatever you want to call them. Do you think that, like, you are one of the few people I know who's been able to test this in person? Do you think this is going to be the game, like, not the game changer? How would I describe it? This could be the taste maker for the application of this technology. Is this going to be the one that we see? Because it's clear lenses, it's a pretty small headset. I mean, I know Samir had it on briefly during the
this is the prototype. This is still the prototype phase. We're very far away from the Samsung thing, but this is back in December. This started in December, the previews and whatnot, and this is the continuation of that. This is it's not ready, but Google wants to be in a discussion, and I think I/O will give them a very big stage to do so.
Yeah, like I say, we'll get to see some more of the things. Obviously, we don't know at this stage what's happening, but new form factors is always good, and getting to test them out in person. I'll give you some opinions. Hopefully my opinions align with what you think about it, Abner. But we'll see, won't we, within a week's time? But yeah, I/O is fast approaching. I'm excited for it. It's always probably one of the biggest events. It is the biggest event in Google's calendar, save maybe by Google. But yeah, I don't anticipate any surprises. Don't know if you do, but it kind of is what it is at this point in time. We've had our kind of our bread and butter, our main appetizer. Would it be the main course is I/O? I don't know how you want to categorize it, but yeah, we will give you all of the news. We'll be there in force next week. I will be sun creamed up, and we will be pounding the pavements of Shoreline. So yeah, stay tuned. We will bring you coverage from the event. We'll hopefully have a podcast, if I can say it, on site as well. So yeah, just like I say, thanks for joining us. It's been a week. It's been a week, and it's going to be a week next week. Yeah, yes, thanks guys, and we'll speak to you soon.
All right, bye.